good. We just want to get more.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I think we'll go ahead and get this started. Work session Tuesday, March 29th at 10 a.m. All three Board of Supervisors are here in Globe, and I'll call this meeting to order. Judge Wright, would you care to lead us in the pledge, please?
Please join me. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everyone. We're going to start with 2A, information discussion action to discuss any need changes to the maps presented to the Board of Supervisors at its January 25th, 2022 work session by the Gila County Redistricting Advisory Committee for possible redistricting of supervisory districts and any further related board actions. In that meeting, there was quite a bit of discussion about the three maps that were presented. And there was also talk of maybe some recommended changes. The redistricting, apparently, we have 39 precincts, and I don't know how we got there, but we ended up creating the maps on 37. At 39 precincts, I believe that you had to be around 10% or at 10% to have to change. But at any percentage, you could change, depending on the Board of Supervisors. So the maps that were presented to us were done by 37 precincts and not 39 precincts. So I'm not sure how all of that got to where it is or how we got to 37. But talking with the county attorney, we are 39 precincts because in order to change precincts, it has to be the Board of Supervisors wanting or voting to change precincts, and we had not done that. So apparently the three maps that were presented to the board, kind of at first we were said there couldn't be changes, and then we were told that we could make changes to those maps. And so I believe some of the changes to the maps were redone in 39 precincts, not 37 precincts. And so one of those three maps was making no changes at all, and the other two were making some changes. And so we were told that we could make recommendations of changes. So I chose to make a recommendation of changes to the map, and after I made the changes, I was unable to find out the results of the changes. So if you have all these precincts out here, and you take, say, precinct whatever number, and give it to one supervisor, and take another precinct and give it to another supervisor, you need to know how that affects change in population. And so right now, our district, we are, I think we're at like 90, well, we're just under 10%. So we don't have to make a change because we're 9.56%. So at 9, 9.56%. From what I understand, at 39 precincts, we don't need to make any changes. But as a supervisor elected to serve the people, ideal population would be 17,757 people per district. Right now, District 1 is 18,677. District 2 is 16,979, and District 3 is 17,616, which makes District 1 1,000 more people than District 3, and about 1,700 over District 2. So, I mean, I as a supervisor have called this meeting today because when the maps were presented, no vote was taken on what we were going to do and hadn't heard much of what we're going to do or what precincts we're doing. So I called for a work session today to kind of get together and see where we're going and where we should go. Kind of where I'm at is when one district has 1,700 people over another district, I think maintenance is necessary. If you're driving your car down the road and you're 10 pounds light on your air pressure, oh well, just go ahead and drive it, or you're going to try to fix it the best you can. So, I called this meeting today to get input from staff and the other supervisors to kind of see where we're going with the redistricting, because at some point in time, we're going to have to make a decision on what we do or if we do anything. And so those maps up there, like I say, one of the maps is one that I sat down with my assistant and worked with on the mapping with 39 precincts instead of 37, just to plug and play and see kind of where we ended up and where things were going to try to get everybody a little more balanced or not. And I believe the other supervisors are welcome to do that too, but I don't know that they've chose to because I haven't seen the map, but I do know when I dabbled with a map and then called to see where we went with the map, to see what the results of the change of plug and play went with. I was informed that Max Fieser had the software to do that, as to which I called Mac Fieser and I said, what are we doing? And he said, well, the map can go to Tom Holman, and Tom Holman can give you the results, as to which I sent it to Tom Holman. Tom Holman did the results, and I didn't get the results because he said it had to be approved by Jackie Sanders before it could be a map. So anyway, the fourth map is the map that my assistant and I dabbled with to change things around, and the information is up on the board. So there's the current ideal population is for everybody to be the same. The upper left in green, I believe that's the map that Terry and I dabbled with. Map 2 in the orange was one of the previous maps that was altered, that was changed, that was presented to us earlier, but it was changed kind of back the way it was with a little bit of change. The map in blue is another map that was presented to us earlier. And then, of course, the map in yellow down on the bottom right is no change. Just leave things the way they are at 9.56% from ideal. So we're not 10% or over, so we don't have to change. And so if they're changing by percentage-wise, if you look at the orange, it's 1.29% from ideal. The map in the blue is 7.33. And if you look at the green, it's 3.94. And so the maps are kind of hard to read. They tell you precincts, but it's hard to tell where the roads are, what areas they are. I was hoping we maybe had somebody here from IT with a map that we could, if one of the supervisors had a question, well, what if we go with that change? What area does that give me, or what area does that take away from me? So I don't know if we have that capability today. I don't know if Tom is available, or if, like I say, if we change one of these maps, or if one of the supervisors says, well, what if I kept this and gave that, what would be the outcome of the change, or if that's something. And so I'm going to leave it at that for a minute and go to Supervisor Christensen. Questions, comments, where you think we're at with this, where you think we should go, what's kind of direction we should go.
Thank you, Chairman Humphrey. I want to thank, first of all, everyone that was involved in putting these maps together. We had citizens and volunteers, and we had a lot of people working on this. So I thank them for that. I'll just say what I think I would like done, and as it affects District 1. That's my main concern. We're not legally obligated to make a change, but I would not select the no change as my first option. I think being within 44/100ths of 1% is very close to the maximum that would require a change, and so I think a rebalance is in order. What rebalance of the remaining three maps, I don't know, but the second map, map 2, mode 1, the orange up there is probably the most ideal percentage-wise, but not my first choice either. We're not legally obligated to select the most ideal percentage either. The reason I don't like that map is because it affects District 1 in one way that's different than the other two remaining maps, and that is that it takes away Whispering Pines precinct. In all three of the remaining maps, the Zane Gray precinct is selected to go to District 3, which I'm willing to accept. I don't want to give up more family than that. So Whispering Pines is not my first choice to go either. So the remaining two maps over here, map 8 mode 1 and map 8 mode 1 TLS 15, would be the one or the other that I would select. But I believe that the debate then becomes between District 2 and District 3 as regard to what's occurring in their districts, which I don't really have a dog in that fight. So I just think that my first choice would be either one of those two maps, 3 and 4.
Would you care to match, plug, and play to maybe play with a map might be on something that you would like other than the 4 presented? Because they said we can make changes to the map. Is there a change that you would like to look at to maybe get a percentage or different numbers or things of that nature? Because apparently that's something that we can do, because I've done it, so.
No, I agree. We can, and I don't have any input above that. I think that District 1 is got basically one option if we don't want to do a no change, and that is to give up the Zane Gray precinct. So I'm good with that as a possible solution.
Okay, good. Supervisor Klein.
Thank you, Tim. So District 3 is pretty unique to the other two districts. And with that being said, I have all 3 reservations. We cannot split the reservations. And so when I look at the maps and I look at how it's drawn and I look at the color on there, I'm like, oh, I don't need any more color to my map. But in order to balance, I know that it's necessary to change some of that. The one thing that I am totally uncertain about, and I don't know if you all agree or not, but our census really sucked this year. It wasn't a good census. But I can tell you for sure that District 1 and District 2 have grown. And that, that's the Tunnel Basin area and Payson. There's just no doubt in anyone's mind, I'm pretty sure, that it hasn't grown. Growth in District 3, yeah, we've had some growth in District 3, but not to that extent. And so as I look at these and I look at the percentages on that, I know what you're saying about Whispering Pines, Steve. I don't necessarily agree or disagree with you on Whispering Pines. I'm thinking if we're wanting to shoot for the lowest percentage rate, then let's do it. If we wanted to give in a little bit, I can do that as well. I don't have anything else in my district that I'm willing to budge on. My district is the same as it's been since I've been in the seat, and unless there's a really good reason, I don't have any place that I want to change. I made that change with you, Tim, at the last meeting when they switched us between Gila and
Just switch 'em, yeah.
and the lower end. I wanted to keep my lower end, and so we switched that back. To me, the rest of my district is fine like it is. And so, yeah, I don't have anything but Zane Gray. If we wanted to go with that and lower the percentages a little bit, we can do that. That's fine. I think there will come a time though, Steve, when District 1 will be giving in more country. It may very well be this next go around after this. And that's just going to be because of numbers. Like I said, rightfully so, you could do it now, but if we got down to 3% on a balance, I'm good with that. So that's where I would say I would sit, Mr. Chair.
Okay, good. Yeah, because like I said, when we left our last meeting, I think staff had a direction, but we weren't anywhere closer to making a decision.
Right.
And go ahead.
Well, the one thing that kept throwing us off was the 37 precincts, so it's come to find out, we're the only ones that can change precinct boundaries, is us three sitting right here. And we had not done that, so we did not have any precinct changes at all. But that did throw a curve for all of us, rightfully so. With that being worked out with what's there, we can adjust lines a little bit. From what Brad told me, and Jessica, you can chime in there too, is as a board, we have the ability to push a line here or there, whatever, to do a little changing. But we are the only ones. So we're dealing with the original set of precincts that we've had before. And I'm good with that. I don't have a problem with that at all. So I think that's where a lot of our confusion came from, start with.
It did. It did. Okay, I'm going to, Sadie, if there are changes, you're going to be pretty much involved in when it gets ready to vote with changing precincts. Would you like to put some input into this, or would you just soon not? That's fine either way, but I want to give you the opportunity, because if we do, choose to get a better average, we're going to put you to work on, yeah. Okay, well, okay, just thought I'd give you the opportunity. Jessica, any legal opinion or options or anything of that nature?
Yeah, sure. For Sadie's opinion, for the recorder's office, they have quite the extensive list of things that they need to accomplish once these lines are adopted. So there was also the issue of whether or not we were going to adopt new lines, one, and then two, whether or not these lines were going to be implemented. Now, if we don't change the lines at all, then we don't have that second issue. But I still do see that second issue being unresolved, because if we are adopting the lines, there is still that question of whether or not we want to implement them, which would then create a bunch of issues for the recorder's office. So it has been decided, as far as the county attorney's office, our opinion is that the lines should not be implemented until the following election. Now, that is definitely a decision for the board to make if you guys want to finalize that decision that we have recommended. But Woody, as far as the designation of the precincts, that's something that should have been done back in October. Being that that was not redone, our recommendation would be that we ratify that, so to speak, to adopt the precinct lines that we had before. We're going to go with the 37 precinct lines. Now, if you want to redistrict and make your tweaks here for the ideal percentage, then you can do so, but that is not legally required for you.
Yeah, you said 37, not 39.
Yes, thank you, Sadie. Yes, so
Yes.
it would be for the 39 precincts. So basically, what the board would do is you guys would make the decision to adopt those 39 precinct lines as they were previously. Does that make sense?
Mr. Chairman,
Hey, go ahead.
I believe that the precinct lines can change in odd numbers of years. And so this is we're having this discussion now for adoption late summer, because we have to have by a new state law, have these adopted by the end of June, 1st of July. They will go into effect in 2023, the 1st of 2023. So that being an odd year, the precinct lines can change before the precincts are split up and adopted for the districts, I believe.
Okay. So in talking to the maps, if we do decide to change for maintenance, it would be after this next election?
So you would have to adopt them before July 1st to stay in compliance. But see, the law is unclear. We discussed this at the previous meeting. But basically, the requirements is to adopt the maps by July 1st. It does not specify whether or not they're going to be implemented. But for practical matters, and with the comments from the recorder's office, not just from Gila County, also from Maricopa County, Graham County, it is nearly impossible to have them implemented for this go-around.
Yeah, I would not want to change maps this close to an election with one of our supervisors being in the election. Supervisor Klein, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's just cleaner and easier, just whatever we do, goes into actual taking effect January 3rd, let's say, of '23, and it's done. And that comes from a discussion I had with Brad, was that, yeah, we can do what we're gonna do, but actually taking effect, it needs to be in January, or in this next year.
Correct.
Supervisor Christensen, comments? Questions?
No,
No?
thank you.
Okay. So do you feel more comfortable going forward with eventually having this on an agenda item?
I think that, that 3.94% from my deal, it would work. It pulls you down closer. It actually brings me up a little bit. Still leaves Steve a little heavy, but it's all within the margin of error inside the percentage range that I think would work for all of us. I don't see why it wouldn't.
Okay. Okay, well, that's why we have work sessions, is to
I mean,
try to get,
I'm up to hear from you guys as well, but that'd
Okay.
just be where I'd be leaning
that-
from.
Excuse me,
yeah, go ahead.
would that be the fourth map then?
It says map 8.
Map 8, Mode 1, TSL15
Yeah, I
is the
believe it.
one where you're giving up Globe. One of the Globe districts goes purple.
No, it's that, no, that mod 1.
That's
Yeah,
a
So I'm
that-
looking at the wrong one,
7.33 for my deal.
because I think that takes in, that other one takes in Whispering Pines, right?
Number 2 does.
Yeah, I don't want to give up Globe 1. I want to stay with mine like it is. That's where I've been, and so the only big change that I see from currently would just be the Zane Gray precinct
Right.
from you.
If we select Map 8, Mode 1, correct.
Okay, let's talk about this a minute then. Map 8, Mode 1, Dave. Where does that change it there? Because on that one, I'm down 772. Yeah, that, I know, but that should be a plus for me. Is it in the globe, down lower in the globe side of it?
Globe 8 would go to BOS 2, Globe 2 would go to BOS 2.
That's
Yeah.
not, okay. Okay.
I don't like that either.
Yeah, no, yeah, because that map 8 mode 1, it would take you, it would be minus 631 votes from the current, from existing.
That's, yeah, 772 is what that one says.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, minus 72 from ideal,
Right.
but not from current. Yeah, because I did some different math on this, because this is, ideal is where we want to go. And so it would put you down 772 from ideal. But what I did in playing with some math is I took ideal and then I minus I believe the 772, and then that gave me a number to take off of yours, but that would leave you down 631 from current.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I did it from current for myself in my book, rather than just from ideal, because our current numbers is what we're wanting to change. And so if you're down 772 from ideal, that puts you down 631 from current. And map 8 mode 1, District 1 is plus 244 from ideal, but actually it's minus 676 from current population. Yeah, so the numbers from ideal, we have those, but we don't, I mean, I did the numbers from our current population, because that's kind of what I was wondering, is what's that going to change from what I'm current? You know, the amount of people that I had in my district now with a change, what's that going to do to me from what I currently have, not from what's from ideal?
So, I mean, when you really look at it, you get back to map 2, mod 1 is the most ideal map we've got.
Well, yeah, it is, and then, like I say, from current, District 1 is minus 76 from the ideal population, but it's minus 996 from what from what District 1 currently has.
But that makes sense on as far as numbers, though.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, that's what I would expect on that one for the growth in that corner.
Right, and you, on District 3,
Would be
from
down.
my math, and I could be wrong, it's minus 76 from ideal population, but it would be plus 65 from what you currently have.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
And I will express, even though that's not my first choice, the map 2 mode 1, because I'm losing, like I said, more of my family, but if it turns out that that is the best choice, I would be willing to go along with that. It's just, it's logical that we would go to this map, but if you put in a little bit of emotion, then it's like I'm losing quite a bit of my people. If we need to do that, we'll do that. Well, it's okay that we do that. I'm not going to reject that. So if that's the best map, then we'll go with that. I'm just losing more of my district than I originally anticipated. And if we need to do that, because District 1 has grown, it will continue to grow. And if this reset gets us down into a 1% area, then there may not be a need for redistricting the lines again 10 years from now.
That we won't know.
And that's one thing, I guess, if, now sitting back in my chair really looking at it, I mean, the rest of the opportunities or the options we have, it puts numbers all over the board. Somebody gains, somebody takes away quite a bit. So, yeah. Map two. Map two is the best choice. And what that does is that supposedly grows you, Tim, to 153 from ideal, so.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I say, from current, District 1, that would be minus 996 people from current. And minus 76 from ideal population. District 2 would be, it would be plus 931 from current. And District 3, it would be plus 65 from current to get us into that 1.29% from ideal. So, okay. So you would be happy going forward with these maps on an agenda? Or do you want to maybe play with it yourself and see what you come up with?
No, I don't think so. I mean, you would end up losing that other chunk.
I don't see a path going forward for changes from my thoughts, my mind. We can pick and choose precincts. It's going to add more to your geographical area. It'll shrink my geographical area. And that is what we're doing. We're doing a decision according to something that was set up at the beginning of our nation to create the best balance we could in representation. So map 2 does achieve that in a very good way. As far as 1.29 is an astonishing number, actually. So if we need to proceed with that map, I logically would follow that. I just hate to lose those people, but I won't stand in the way of that because it is probably the best map.
Okay. Well, I like map 8, mode 1, but that's okay because I played with the numbers. But that's neither here nor there. So anyway, we're closer to going to an agenda from a work session with our redistricting. Is that correct? Okay. Staff, any questions, comments? Jackie?
Mr. Chairman and board members, would you like to have a conversation about, so that we have some more direction, we could do another round of public meetings to present to the public what is the likely choice or choices, because the last round of public meetings were based on 37 precincts, because the census counted 37. So would you like for another round of public meetings? And with that, we have been advised that we also specifically reach out to the 3 tribal entities and give them a letter with the options. So coming out of here, staff would like to have, would you like us to come back with one map? And would you like us to go to public meetings, and would that be the map? And I realize we can't make decisions, but just some input so that we have some direction before it comes back to you as an agenda item to vote on. Public meetings would happen before it was voted, to see if there's any other public input.
Okay, good question. Supervisor Christensen, comments?
Well, I think that we've already maybe done enough of that. And if we come back with only one map, It's as if we're giving you directions right now, we're voting on it.
I understand. Would you like all three of these to go back to public meetings? Does that feel comfortable?
Anytime we engage the public is good.
Okay. That's kind of,
Okay, Supervisor Klein?
Jackie, did we reach out to the reservations the first go-around with all the maps?
So, Mr. Chair, Supervisor Klein, we held public meetings in San Carlos. We held a public meeting that Tono Apaches were invited to. We did not specifically hold a meeting in White Mountain because there's really no place to have a meeting. So our next plan for those would be, we were advised that a letter to them, to their tribal councils with the options so that they could make comments. We have not gone back to the public with all of these. We don't have to. We've been to the public now twice. And I think what I'm hearing back is that possibly, and they're all on the website, these versions are on the website, they're also in GIS so that you can drill in. A specific letter would go back out to each of the three tribes with the links so they can see them prior to a next meeting.
My opinion would be a letter to the tribe saying they're on our website and these are the ones we're looking at would be fine. As far as going back to the public with any of this,
And Mr. Chair, Supervisor Klein, we had very little public participation. We held Zoom meetings, we held in-person meetings, we held daytime, we held nighttime.
is there a way we can just post it on our website?
Yep,
And
it's
then
already
reference
there.
the maps if somebody cares, and then they can also comment to us?
And we could also do like an updated on the front page, final maps under consideration, so that people know it's something new to look at. They still have the opportunity with an email to submit comments. Nobody has yet, but that's still there.
I would be good with that.
Yeah, where I'm at is, it's been difficult from the start. So I would like to see it open for public input at a cutoff time, and that it's on the website, and let people know, whether it's in the paper or whatever, that it's on there, because a lot of people don't know. Because I know that we have had people that were on this board asking me questions of where we're going or what we're doing with it. So rather than just leave all that behind us and make a decision, I would prefer not to. I would prefer to get the board involved, let them know that there's maps that have been changed from 39 to 37 back to 39, and now we have maps for them to comment on.
Sure.
And then after a comment period, I would say that, yeah, that maybe not just one map back, but two maps back for an agenda,
Okay, perfect. And
would be my input. Mr. Minlove, input?
No, it sounds like a plan. The only, because there is the opportunity for public input, and the detail for the maps that you mentioned, Chairman Humphrey, is in these details, that you can drill down and see the actual street, and that is all on our website.
Yeah, that's important. So
Yeah.
if a public says, okay, if I choose this map, then what street do I give District 3? You know, and it's like, wow, if I give them that, then I'll be across the street from my district type thing, which is difficult not knowing. So if public looks at the maps and sees the change, and they want to go to where they live or their mother lives or whoever, then they can see what district they would be moving things.
That's right, Mr. Chairman, and actually, if we were to go out and hold public meetings, we wouldn't have that detailed.
Right.
So they're getting the bigger picture by looking at the website, going
right.
down into the
Sure.
maps and drilling into those and having the opportunity to comment.
And we need to let them know that they can do that, and let me know your cutoff date, because I hold a lot of public meetings, and it's like, if you're interested, get in and get it done by so-and-so, or you're not going to get an opportunity to.
And Mr. Chair, I would propose that we're going to be doing that kind of outreach again with notices, just like we did before, things in the paper, things on the radio, things on the website. And we can have the month of April be the comment period.
Okay.
And coming back with an agenda item in May.
Okay. Good. Supervisor Christensen, you good with that?
I am. Thank you.
Supervisor Klein?
I'm good with that with one question. Jackie, how long do we keep the re-election or the redistricting committee together?
So, Mr. Chair, Supervisor Klein, glad you asked. Once we have, at any time now, you could, as a board, on the day that we have this agenda item to select, we could also have an agenda item to retire the committee and give them all a certificate of appreciation. We could do all of that on the same meeting. We could retire them before, or we could wait until the map the maps, plural, come to you for consideration, and have the committee retired at that time. According to the clerk, we do have to, because the Board of Supervisors created them, we have to uncreate them.
Okay. I'm good.
That's not a real word, but you know what I meant.
Yeah, that would be good to show appreciation to them with the outcome finally
Certificate and
that
a final.
we're getting to.
Okay.
Okay, reason for the meeting, and it's
Thank you.
done. Everybody good? Okay, then we're moving on. Okay, regular agenda item 2B, information discussion regarding the need of elected offices of county departments for the use of Gila County Tommy Klein Martin Complex multipurpose room. And me again, Tim Humphrey. Anyway, the reason I wanted to do this is we have a beautiful building up in Payson. I'm sure it's a multi-purpose building, and we created it for the people to have multi-purpose in that building. And I had heard from some of the electeds that would like to use that building. And I've also heard from other people that was wondering the uses of those buildings and what was able to be used in that building, whether it's Payson, the town of Payson wanted to have events there, whoever may want to have meetings there or events there. Also, too, you know, a lot of emphasis in that building was put towards our courts to perhaps at some point in time be able to do jury trials there, so all the people from up north didn't have to drive all the way to Globe. And I know that that's going to be a thing to work out, and so that we'd have a place to make it more beneficial to our people in the northern end to be able to go for jury trial or maybe trials without having to drive all the way to Globe. And so with that, I wanted to get a meeting up in front of the board so that we could hear from anybody that has anything to do with the building on who would like to use it and how maybe we should use that building, because we've got a lot of money in that building and I'd like the lights on all the time. I mean, I would like it to be used as much as it can, as often as it can, for the people that put the money forward for us to be able to do it for them. And so that's why I called this, meeting today as a work session, because these work sessions are to get everybody together so we can talk about things and see what might be a better direction. And one thing about a direction, you can always change or take lefts or right as you go down the road, but you got to start somewhere. And so we've started somewhere, and I feel as if there's some concerns, and so I called this meeting, and so I would like to give anybody that wants an opportunity to talk, but first, Supervisor Christensen, is there something you would like to comment on about our new building and the use of it?
I would agree, it's a beautiful building. And my office is now currently in that building, as well as Cheryl's office too. So I agree with you as well that we should be utilizing that building to its maximum potential. So at this point, I don't have any other comments. I'd just like to hear anyone that has concerns with regard to the way we are planning to schedule at this point. Because I think we have a plan to schedule at this point, so we just need to talk about whether that's a good plan or not.
Okay, Supervisor Klein.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, yeah, we all need to be using this building as much as we possibly can, 7 days a week preferably. So I know a question came up with the judges, and Jonathan, I spoke with you all about that. Have we kind of come to an arrangement there?
Please approach, you were asked a question, so please approach.
You're probably the center of this discussion, Judge.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Humphrey, Supervisor Klein, Supervisor Christensen. Right now, there is I think, yes. Okay, I'll speak closer. I'll pull it closer. Thank you. I tell people that every Monday in my court, so it's about time what goes around comes around. Thank you. I think one of you just said, we have it, when we get a direction, we start there and then we move forward and make changes as may be necessary. I would like to see some changes. I have some prepared remarks. Supervisor Klein, if I could give those now, or if I answer your question, I don't know how you'd like me to proceed, but this is your meeting, so.
Supervisor Klein asked the question, so if...
Yeah.
Okay, Chairman Humphrey?
Yeah, he asked the question. If he'd like it answered now, please do.
Yeah, absolutely, Tim.
Go ahead.
That's why I like work sessions. We don't have to
Okay.
be so down to the point.
So, and just so it's okay if I give you some, I think I have some prepared remarks that hopefully will get, from the court's perspective, our discussion started. This isn't the only perspective, but I think that will take a step towards answering your question. So if I could do that, and then, first, I think you all know me, Tim Wright. I'm the presiding judge here in Gila County. I'm honored to have our other judge, Brian Chambers, is here. I think he's going to ask to speak today. We have our clerk, other elected officials. I wanted to start off my remarks by first thank you as board members for taking these steps to both fund and construct this building. The Tommy Klein Martin Complex in Payson is a beautiful building. When I drive by, I see the lights on. I'll add on, I want to see lights on and people inside too. There's beautiful, it's an amazing building. And I also want to thank you for taking up the scheduling. I think this is something that I'm looking for a collaborative solution. In counties, we have multiple elected officials, and that can create the potential for conflict or the potential for a unified solution. But ultimately, you're the ones that made the decision to build this building for us, for the people, and so you're the ones that can really, I think, bring all of us together. What the courts are asking for as far as this building is concerned, and really it's the multi-use room in the Tommy Klein Martin building. From our perspective, we're not asking for anything new. We believe that during the planning, design, and construction of the building, there was an understanding that the courts would have priority on Wednesday through Fridays to use that large room and the ability to schedule those days. And so that's where we're asking that we move forward with that. With the board's permission, I'd like to just cover a few things. The history of facilities, court facilities in the northern part of the county. Our view, again, of the building and how we've been communicating with the public. Talk about what the court needs are in northern Gila County and how that applies to the building. Talk about the status quo where we're at today, the direction that we're currently on, and also discuss how we have desires, we have needs. Ultimately, though, I think we can come to a collaborative solution, so what flexibility? So taking a step back, how did we get where we are today? The Superior Court in the northern half of the county basically has the same facilities we've had for 3+ decades. When I was a young prosecutor in the mid-1990s, that's a few years ago, we basically had the same facilities. We have a courtroom in the 714 building. It's more of a hearing room. There's no jury facilities. And then there's also a secondary courtroom in the back of the jail where there's a jury box, but really no other jury facilities. So we've done, on occasion, we've had days of trial there, and you can either have the judge have a chambers or the jury have a deliberation room where there's really not a choice. There's not two rooms unless we ask Sheriff Shepard. We've kicked him out with his permission out of his office several times to make that work. Not an ideal situation. Additional court facilities have been needed for decades. The first major step was the purchase in 2014, when Judge Peter Cahill was our presiding judge, of the Napa facility. After working with consultants from the National Center for State Courts, looking at the state of that building, it was determined that that really wasn't a usable option for a court facility. A big part of that was just the layout of the building and how it was. In 2016, the court continued with designers from the National Center for State Courts, and we created a standalone blocking design for what a court facility might look like. Funding stopped us on that version. In 2017, we explored the Payson Plaza, and we got as far as an architectural layout for that, but the board, in your wisdom, decided a rental option was really not a long-term solution to the problem, and so that's where that stopped. In 2018, we again circled back to Napa to see if that would work. We were trying to make sure we eliminated all possibilities. In late 2018, the concept of a county-wide shared facility really came to the forefront. In September of that year, I put together a draft paper looking at potentially like a $60 million county building. That original concept that I had had a unified building, but a distinct part of it for the courts, where we could pick and select juries. That idea of a unified court building with separate court facilities morphed into what is now the Tommy Klein Martin building, and with the multi-use room that has shared uses. I can remember the architect coming out. I can remember sitting in a conference table, around a conference table in the Public Works Department up in the Payson, just outside of Star Valley, taking Post-its and putting Post-its on the wall on what we think we needed, what that was going to look like. I learned some cross uses were at the center of that project. How are we going to get this building used all days? I learned some new terms like hotel offices. Never heard that term before, where you have an office that's shared. I think it works great for a county like ours that has facilities on both sides. I don't think we need, I think our superintendent of public instruction came up today. I don't know if he needs a full-time office on both sides, but if there's an empty office, when he comes north, he can use. If we have folks in the north and they come south, they can use those. So the idea was collaboration. And a key part of the building was that large multi-purpose room, where we were going to be able to have both hearings and select juries and also actually try cases. And as we designed the building, I didn't design, I'm not an architect, but as it was contemplated, we looked at how do we design this room so that we can do jury trials. Throughout that entire process, it was the court's perspective that we would have primary access to that multi-purpose room on Wednesdays through Friday of each week. And although it wasn't a standalone facility, which we had contemplated for years, it was something that we thought we could make work. We realized that limited funding, it's not my money, it's not your money, it's the citizens' money, and we needed to maximize that. Part of that arrangement, too, with the Wednesday through Friday priority was that we could then give up our second courtroom in the back of the sheriff's office. And then that made some more dominoes fall, where that could then, in the master plan, allow the sheriff's office to have a modern booking facility in Sallyport behind their building. Again, it was a priority basis. It wasn't something that we were going to say, haha, the room is ours on these days. It was, we needed to know we could use it when necessary on those days. The sharing of rooms is something that is really in place right now. That second courtroom that I mentioned, we schedule that. When we're not using it, the sheriff's office uses it for training. It's available for other purposes. Unfortunately, it doesn't get used probably as much as it could, because if you've been back there, it's sort of an older, not well-maintained, dark room, so not ideal. But it is under a shared rubric right now. About 8 weeks ago, as we were looking forward to getting the certificate of occupancy for the entire building, our court administrator met with the county manager to verify the scheduling of that multi-purpose room in anticipation of our using it. At that meeting, from our perspective, we were told for the first time that we wouldn't have priority 3 days a week, but it would be more like 3 days per month, and that all the scheduling would be done through the manager's office. When I heard that, I immediately reached out to James. We were able to meet, I think, a little over a week later. He confirmed what John had told me, that was the current plan, which was very different than what we had been expecting. let me take a step back and say that myself and our other elected officials, the courts, we have a lot of elected officials. I think as we have gone out to the public, we have publicly supported this building. For the past 2 years, I've told people that all things being equal, I'd love to have a standalone court building, but I realized that given budget constraints, this shared facility was probably what was best. I praised county administration and the board for their willingness to work with us to come to a collaborative solution, and I shared with folks the division of time that I had understood, which was that Monday through Tuesdays, county-wide, that would be used. That would work for planning and zoning meetings if desired for the Board of Supervisors. But then on the end of the week, the Wednesday through Friday, we would have the priorities. As the building went up and now is basically complete, people ask me all the time, and as recently as not Saturday 3 days ago, but Saturday 10 days ago, when are you moving into your new building? My response has been very consistent, which is, number one, it's not my building, it's the county's building. We have facilities to use in there. So it's a shared building. I've always praised the synergies that are connected there. If the building is ever referred to, if I've ever referred to it as a courthouse, I don't know if I have. It's really in the context, courthouse, and I even looked it up on the internet, 2 meanings. Number one, courthouse is where you have courts, but historically, courthouses are where counties have their administrative facilities. And so that's really what I look, what it is. I've been very intentional to highlight the joint and shared uses of the building. Now, what are the court's facilities in northern Gila County? And again, we've been in basically the same facilities for 3 decades. And that's deficient in 2 areas. First of all, we need that second courtroom. Okay? Since I've taken office in the last 7 years, we've really, when Judge Cahill took office many years ago, he I think was the first one who consistently had 1 judge in Payson basically every day. In the last 7 years, we've changed that up, and now we have a judge in Payson basically every day, and then a second judge in Payson 4, 5, 6 days a month. And that's needed because right now, if you look at the criminal case filings, more than half of them originate on the north side of the county. If you look at the civil case filings, more than half of those originate on the north side of the county. And family law is the same thing. So the cases are originating on that side of the county, which means that the litigants, the lawyers, are from up there. And so we really do need that second courtroom. With the elimination of the courtroom at the back of the sheriff's office, we're going to need to have a level of consistency so we can do that. We also run an opiate court every other week in Payson, and that's the second courtroom we need. The second need beyond that second courtroom is just the ability to select and try a jury in the north. And again, as I mentioned, the room was designed for that. It features designs that are specifically for jury selection and trials. The movement of people in a jury trial is very choreographed. You got to keep a defendant away from a victim. You have to keep jurors away from spectators, lawyers, defendants, witnesses, etc. And so when that room was designed, it has all those different aspects. You'll note that there's a sally port on the east side of the building that goes out to separate rooms. So if we have someone who's in custody, they can be led out that way and safely removed from the courthouse. Our jurors come down a hallway and into that back room, which doubles as a conference room, jury room, all of those movements. And so those are the 2 big needs. One of the questions that arises, and I want to address it right off, is how many jury trials do we do each year? And I will tell you the answer is, number 1, unpredictable, and number 2, complicated. I wish I could say we try 1 trial every other week. We do not. But as a prelude, the way you get cases finished is by setting trials. Believe it or not, if people have a deadline, and in court the deadline is the trial, people prep their cases, they get motivated, and they figure out whether that really needs a trial or whether they're going to get the case resolved. And so we schedule a lot of jury trials, and we schedule multiple trials on single days. Over the months of April and May, in my division, I have 30 days of jury trials scheduled. And right now we're only scheduling those Wednesday through Friday. So if you start counting that up, you'd realize I've scheduled more trial days than are days on my calendar, but I know I stack them because I know that if I push them, a good portion of them will disappear because once people's feet are held to the fire, they make things happen. How many trials really go? We don't know. So far in 2022, it seems like Judge Chambers' division has been doing all the trials. Have you had 4 or 5? They picked 5 juries. 4 of them have actually got tried to conclusion. I will tell you that over the next 6 weeks, I'm scheduled to be in trial 5 of those weeks. And I really think next week, I know for sure I got 3 days going. And after that, I have a 4-week trial that I believe, as far as they tell me, it's going. So it just sort of goes in waves. If we can have the priority scheduling on Wednesday through Fridays, we can meet those needs. Will we use every Wednesday through Friday? The answer is absolutely no. And we're more than willing to work with other departments to facilitate their use when we're not using those 3 days. As I mentioned before, it's not my building. It's not any particular department's building. It's the people's building, and we want to see the lights on and people using it. Now, what has been happening since we had that meeting with James? We've been working towards a win-win solution. I've met with each of you individually. I learned that this meeting might be a possibility, but waiting on those things, we haven't sat on our hands and said, we're waiting. We've been working through Sherry, James's assistant, to get things scheduled. We learned that the recorder may need the building for large chunks, months at a time. The current way it's happening is a direction. It's not a direction that we think is long-term sustainable. Let me give you some examples of why we think that the better is for us to schedule it. When we first sent out our reservations, the building isn't even open yet. We're trying to get reservations set up. I have a trial that's scheduled to start on April 20th, which is a day after our grand opening. I just had some emails yesterday. As far as I know, we'll be ready to go. But that trial was scheduled for 9 trial days, so that creates 3 weeks. And I'm going to ask a juror, can I have you every Wednesday through Friday for the next 3 weeks? And they're looking at their calendar. We asked to have that scheduled. First week, no problem. The second week, the Wednesday was unavailable because my understanding is there's an employee benefit fair scheduled that Wednesday. And so now our 3-week trial just got bumped out, and now it's a 4-week trial. The same number of days, but now I'm asking jurors, can you come back a 4th week? And you can imagine that will eliminate some of our jurors. I don't know anything if that employee benefit fair could have been done on a different day or not. But those are the kind of things that happen. As we schedule trials, we're in court, and I'm trying to schedule my calendar with 2 attorneys and witnesses and get everything together. When we schedule the building, the court, we have our staff is on a virtual chat with our courtroom clerks, and they also watch our feeds. So they can give us instant input on building availability on given days. The way it is now, I schedule the trial, and then promptly, usually within an hour or 2, our staff will then ask Sherry if it's available. Now, I think this is a good thing in some ways. Sherry doesn't always get back to us right away because she works for James, and James has her working. She's not just sitting at her desk drinking coffee, waiting for our request. So that takes time, and so everyone goes home, and then we find out about potential conflicts at a later date, and we struggle to follow through on those. For the other days when we have that second judge in Payson and we ask for those days, we were asked for more detailed information on why we were requesting those. So we were able to provide that. Some of those days we just say, okay, we're going to put Judge Wolak in Payson 2 days a month so we can group his hearings. And so we may be asking for a day where we don't have anything scheduled yet, but we know that's where we're going to pour all his hearings into. We also know that the first and third Friday of every month is when we do opiate court, and so we'll need that second courtroom. Again, the status quo is better than nothing, but long-term, we just don't see it as a long-term workable solution. And really, it gives me pause if we don't have a confirmation of use that we know we have priority on. How can I, in good conscience, give up that second courtroom that we have and move forward? Now, we've tried to be flexible in coming to a solution. We're asking for priority on Wednesday through Friday, but we're not demanding every one of those dates. For example, just recently we were made aware that elections needs that for early voting, at least under the current rubric of state law. We don't know what that'll be at the end of the legislative session. As soon as we found out, first that was a surprise to me. I remember when we were looking at the building, putting Post-its on the board, There were some things from elections, and that, my understanding is that's the reason that front glass room was built off, so elections could use it. I guess things have changed, and again, that's not, the legislature changes things on how Sadie and her crew are required to do their job, and Eric. But as soon as that happened, our response wasn't, no, you can't have those days. It's, how are we going to work with you on those days? Whether we had priority or not, we were going to say to Sadie, you need these for elections. We can work around that as long as we know ahead of time, and we can do that. So we've been trying to do that. Additionally, on flexibility, there's an office in the building labeled Judge's Chambers. Part of that is, people say, when are you moving into your new office? I actually had one of our IT people say, when can we get you moved over? I don't plan on using that office full time. When we're in the building, whether it's myself or another judge, whoever's conducting hearings, he or she will need to use that office. But when we're not using it, we don't have an objection if it's treated like a hotel office. Again, there's folks that are down here, department heads, elected officials who have primary offices in Globe. When they go to Payson, they may need to use that on a Monday or Tuesday, or when we're not using it, we're perfectly amenable to that. Okay. Getting close. Let's see here. We've asked, just brainstormed in our own minds, would it work if we had priority every other week on a Wednesday through Friday? That really doesn't work, because now if we have a jury trial that's 4 days, we have a 10-day break in the middle of our jury trial. A lot of things happen when you let jurors go for 10 days. They get sick, they get in car wrecks, their relatives get sick. We've asked, could we do it let's say the first 3 weeks of each month, so Monday or Wednesday through Friday on the first, second, and third week, and then have the fourth not there. It's a potential there. We still run into problems if we have a jury trial that's over 9 days, or if we have holidays in some of those days. The holidays don't always fall where we'd like them to. So we're open to options, but we really do need specific days that we can count on for that use of that room, and that we can schedule on a consistent basis. And so, summary of my remarks, I want to end right where I started, which is first, thank you for funding and constructing the building. It's been a long time coming. You're the board that make the decision to make that happen. We appreciate that. From our perspective, we're asking that the agreement that's been in place since the planning, design, and construction, which is court priority on Wednesday through Fridays, and the ability to schedule that be put in place, and we're asking you to adopt a policy affirming that. So I'm a lawyer, so it's a long-winded answer. I'll take specific questions, or I can have or other folks have things to say.
Thank you, Tim.
Supervisor Klein, did your questions get answered?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay, I guess I just have 2 questions, because you answered most all of them.
Okay.
Another one, you said you're willing to work with whatever, and that like 3 weeks or 2 weeks out of a month doesn't work. Would every other month work? Like Monday through Wednesday, every other month, give you 6 months out of the year with Monday through Wednesday.
As far as jury trials, I think that's something we can do. We could stack them.
Okay, well, like I say,
Yeah.
I'm just throwing things up in the air because it's all going to float down somewhere.
Right. And so, and again, we're up for creative solutions, and I appreciate that. If we knew every other month we had Wednesday through Friday, and then on the off months, except for election time, we had Fridays designated, then we can have that second courtroom. We really need to have that second courtroom available at least once a week, because between opiate court and other court days, we have Judge Woolak up there handling that overflow of cases.
Okay, another question, and it's more of maybe a recommendation, is, I noticed that you said that, would there be a better department on perhaps scheduling the new facility? Marion, you schedule this? No? This receptionist schedules this, who's there every day, that kind of knows what's going on. Recommendation on, because I noticed you mentioned that Sherry's really busy.
Right.
And as a county manager's assistant, I can only imagine how busy she really is.
Right.
And so, recommendation or thought on perhaps another department that may be a better scheduling department?
For the days that we have priority, I really don't see another department besides court staff that would be that person. Now, if that's the way the board chooses to go, we'll have someone designated. So if another department says, they'll know if we want to use the building on a Wednesday through Friday, they call either Terry Grego or Yoli, or they'll have that name, and we have someone there. And that person, I'm looking at John, they can have a real-time schedule in the same way that when one of our judges says, when I'm in Payson and say, can I do a hearing next Thursday in courtroom B, they know, they can look and say, no, Judge Wolak's in there, or Judge Wolak has the type of hearings we can move him into chambers for him. But we get that real-time scheduling right now.
As well as we don't need it this Wednesday because the court finished early or whatever,
Right.
which would open one of your regular days in case somebody else had something.
Right.
Okay, yeah, those were my questions. Supervisor Christian, did that bring up any questions for you, or?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Judge Wright. And I think I understand completely the concerns. So the question I have is if you have a schedule of Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and court gets canceled, settled, something happens, and now those 3 days are available for another use, how much prior to that week would you know that those days would be available?
We work very diligently to know far ahead of time. It doesn't always work. Normally, we under our procedures right now, we set a trial, and the attorneys are required 16 days before the trial. So we start on Wednesdays. They're required to tell us 2 Mondays before that if the trial is going. They do what's called a certification. And at that point, we start sending out jury questionnaires. So normally, we know if a trial is going, we know 16 days in advance. Now, that doesn't guarantee that we'll use the court for all of those days. Several things happen. First, some lawyers guess that it'll take longer than it does. Other things happened. Judge Chambers had a trial. Remember, I asked him how many trials he's had this year. He was very careful to tell me he's picked 5 but only tried 4. Because on one of his trials, I think the last one, they picked a jury on Wednesday, but by the end of the day on Wednesday, he had to declare a mistrial in the case. And so now, Wednesday afternoon, Thursday, Friday, if we had it reserved, potentially would be open. So those are hopefully 16 days out, but it could be last minute as well.
So the concern that I have is if you have been granted every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but you're not using them, then virtually eliminates a lot of flexibility for anyone else using it because they have to plan ahead too. So I can see that as being a possible difficulty. And I do think that after you're done with your remarks, Mr. Chairman, it would be wise to hear from our county manager the perspective of the current schedule and planning that we already have.
I'm sure we'll hear from several other people today.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think you've answered everything I need to know, Tim. I appreciate that as well. And my next question would be for James or whoever else in the audience. I know, Sadie, you've got the elections coming up, so you have a pretty good need. But I think for the folks that are in this room, how often are we going to use it?
And Mr. Chairman, can I go ahead and have a seat?
You
I'll be available to call me back.
Please do, yeah, please do.
So, I mean, that's what I would say. I look at this building as a multi-purpose building, but when I look at outside uses or other uses, I know Sadie's has plans, but just how often would that building be in demand? And that's for James.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Klein, I'd prefer to get all the comments, because there may be different comments from the gallery, and to try to sum those up and pull them all together at the end. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that, James. So what I'm kind of hearing from everybody is that, well, maybe the town may want to use it for a day, or maybe your veterans may want to use it for a day, which may be on a Saturday anyway, not during the week, or at night. And so, like, evening uses, Judge, is that an issue if somebody needed it, like a Wednesday evening or a Thursday? I mean, how does that work?
Thank you, Supervisor Klein. Normally, our court is going to be scheduled 9 to 5. Probably the major exception to that is once we give a case to a jury to deliberate, normally they're now in charge. So if they want to deliberate into the evening, and especially if we do a 3-day trial, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and we give them to them at 4:30, they usually want to finish that day. They don't want to come back. So I would say that there is a substantial possibility at the last day of trial, which is typically Fridays, that we'd use it into the evening, but most other days, we would be done by 5. Occasionally, the attorneys, again, they'll say, we have a witness that we're trying to get in today, but normally we promise jurors 5 o'clock, we'll get you out because they have other things they need to do.
Okay, thank you. So I look at a lot of that. Also, I go back to what the judge was talking about in the past that we looked at and planned for. We did plan on putting together a building for the courtrooms and the judges. We looked at that hard. We looked at the Napa building and a couple different times at least that the judge pointed out, and I know that's for sure at least twice. But we also looked at that plaza there as well, and the cost of that far exceeded what we wanted to provide. Our whole goal through all of this process, the way it started, was to provide some relief for those people in that corner up there to keep them from traveling back and forth the globe to whatever was going on. And I know that the office space, the courtroom space you guys are using is ancient and all that. So I realized that there was no way we could ever provided a building just for the courts. We were working basically with $5 million of bonded money for up there, and we exceeded that. It cost us more than $5 million to put that building together. But compared to something like, Judge, you're mentioning, 60 million or whatever, I mean, that's a huge savings to the people. And we could have never went there. We could have never have done that. And so when I really look at this building and I look at priorities a lot. And so I look at the courts, I look at Sadie's elections and what she needs to do up there for space for her early voting and whatnot. I believe we gotta all come together and come to terms on this, and there's no reason why we can't do that. And if it's just a matter of a scheduling issue, I'm sure we can work it out. Maybe Sherry's not the right one to schedule, Maybe it's your office, Judge, or somebody like that, So I'm game to look at whatever. Yeah, I know James doesn't agree with that, but I am game to throw everything out on the table to make this one work because we don't have any other options. We don't. We have to, and we shouldn't be keeping ourselves in mind. We should be keeping our constituents in mind. It isn't us, it's the people that's out there on the streets that this is meant for. Now, one thing I will say about this building is this doesn't help the battle I've had with North and South Gila County. Ever since I've been in this chair, I've fought that. There's always been this thing in everybody's mind that I'm from Northern Gila County, or Northern Gila County this, Southern Gila County that. There is no such thing as North and South, in my opinion. We are Gila County, and this is the courthouse, and that up there is a building that we can use in regards to that. But otherwise, I think we can come together and make this work. I don't see why we can't. So, thank you, Chair.
Okay, you're welcome. Go ahead, James.
Can I make one comment? We're talking about jury trials up there, and as far as I know, unless something's changed in the last few weeks, there's one jury pool in Gila County. There's not a north jury pool. There's not a south jury pool. There is a jury pool. The Administrative Office of the Courts of the Superior Court, they are the ones that will designate whether there's going to be two bodies of potential jurors in Gila County. As far as I know, that is not taking place. So if we have a trial down here or we have a trial in Payson, there's going to be people from both locations that are traveling north or south. I don't know if there's been an update on that from the AOC, but we do, as far as I know, at this time have one jury body, potential jury body in Gila County.
Okay, yeah, so the one jury pool. So right now, everybody from in the northern part of Gila County needs to drive to the county seat for jury trial or jury selection. So, wait, no, I said right now.
It can be either location.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
I said right now. So going forward, then people from down here may need to drive to Payson for jury selection or jury trial if it's scheduled on a particular day. But I believe, go ahead, Ed, if you'd like to take and address that concern or question.
Thank you. As of today, the manager is correct. We are there is a provision both in Arizona Constitution, statute, and the Administrative Office of Court, their regulations that allow to propose a split in the jury pool. We are definitely exploring that option. Maricopa County is the only court that has done that so far, but we believe that there is a basis for investigating that. We've already begun informal discussions with them, because the best way to maximize jury participation is to minimize the impediments. And so right now, if folks live in Payson and or Young, or Christopher Creek, and they get summoned to Globe, they're leaving. If we say, we don't need you here till 9, all of us are thinking, wow, 9's nice and late. Someone in Christopher Creek or Young might be thinking, that means I'm a 6:30 leaving my house. And if you're coming from the north this way, you get to look into the sun coming and look into the sun going back. And if we begin trying trials up north, and again, as James said, initially, until we can get a split, my trial I have on April 20th. I anticipate having jurors from Payson and from Globe Summit. Again, that's not ideal. And I didn't talk about that today because I think we need to take this, for me, one step at a time. We need to make sure we get the facility locked down, and then we can worry about the other. We are working on that in the background. Ultimately, at some point, we may ask the board for support, but ultimately, it's something that gets approved administratively through the Office of Courts.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm with Supervisor Clint. Go ahead, Jessica.
Chairman, supervisors, thank you. And certainly, this is not the opinion of the county attorney's office. I am just chiming in as far as insight I've seen in this position. It's not only jurors that need to travel to the southern side, it's also victims and witnesses. When you tell a victim, you have to travel to Globe 3 times now over the course of 3 weeks. You might be victimizing them again. It might be favorable to have some of those Payson cases handled in Payson. So I do see that issue. And I just wanted to chime in because with Judge Wright's comments, I wanted to speak about another issue that the county has had, which is the jail capacity. We just entered into an IGA with another county to house our inmates. The board did ask if that was going to be a long-lasting contract. I believe it's impossible to know how long that contract will last. The issue seems to, there doesn't seem to be a light at the end of the tunnel for the jail capacity issue. With that being said, those defendants in there are awaiting trial. So to me, if there was an opportunity for our county to hold more jury trials, then it would bring down the number of inmates in our jail facilities. Not only is there the buildup for the sheriff's office, for the county attorney's office, there's also a buildup of defendants. There's going to be a constant flow of defendants coming in and those files racking up. Especially with COVID, there was a bunch of delays with jury trials, administrative orders indicating that we couldn't have jury trials, or that there were certain restrictions that ultimately prevented jury trials from moving forward. With that being said, I just wanted to let you know, from my perspective, I think that there are other issues that trickle down from not being able to have jury trials timely. And the other...
So, Mr. Chairman?
Hold on. Let her finish.
Yeah, the only other point that I had, Judge Wright did mention about family law. It's not only the county attorney's office and criminal defendants, these trials that we're also having other trials. With family law, we have taxpayers, we have litigants out there who need to continue to pay their attorney fees. And as these just trials get pushed out, these litigants are incurring more attorney costs. That's all. Go ahead.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Minlow.
So, Mr. Chairman, Ms. Sabelli, from what I understand, you're saying we need to hurry up jury trials. However, during COVID, jury trials were completely suspended for so long that there's a backlog.
Before we go down that rabbit hole, we're here to talk about the use of the building and things, not
That's what I thought,
necessarily
Mr. Chairman.
COVID and things, and so.
That's what I thought.
Okay, but yeah, so go ahead and make it short, but I'm not gonna go down a lot of rabbit holes. We're gonna get back to Sadie and some of the comments to see where we're going with this building.
The rabbit hole's gone down that we need to hold more jury trials, or any trials. That does not pertain to what we're discussing.
Well, okay, that's your opinion, and, okay, so if you're finished, then we're gonna go forward. Sadie, would you care to comment on your use of the building up there? Because our elections are extremely important and they need to happen.
How does a jail?
Okay, courts, did you want to add something to what's been going on? And James, would you two have a private conversation outside, not here, please?
Well,
Thank you, Chairman Humphrey, members of the board. I wanted to point out one thing. I think Judge Wright is correct in that probably the issue of splitting the jury pool and the issue of this building are two separate issues. And the county manager is correct that if we're able to hold more jury trials up in Payson, it is going to mean that people from southern Gila County are going to have to travel up to Payson for jury trials a little more. And I say this being someone whose house is practically in the shadows of the courthouse here, that the distance between Globe and Payson is the exact same distance as the distance between Payson and Globe. And the good people in Payson have been coming down to Globe for jury duty for decades and decades and decades. And I think what Judge Wright and I are saying, and I think the judges that preceded us, is that we need to have a facility that is dedicated at certain periods of time to be able to set and then try jury trials and other uses up in Payson. If we're able to do that, I think we can get on to the issue of whether or not it makes sense to split the jury panel into two in the county. I know, I think it's fitting that this building is named after Tommy Klein Martin. I think all of you probably know, I was looking up at the members of the board up there. I used to sit in the chair that Ms. Chiabelli is in for 12 to 13 years, and I think I got to advise the last 8 members of the board up there when I was in the county attorney's office. And those of you who are on the board now will know that probably every time you've ever seen me, if you've seen me at Ace Hardware or wherever out in the community, I've said, we really need this facility. And as you've built it, I've said, thank you. Thank you for putting up this facility. And I did the same thing with Tommy Martin. And I was impressed by her dedication to the idea of having facilities that could be dedicated, at least a certain portion of the time, to the courts up in Payson. She was very supportive of that. I remember talking to her, and she said, well, let's go look at this place, and let's go look at that place, and we went to look at different possibilities. I think, and I know some of you probably even know her better than I knew her, but I think she would be in favor of having court facilities consistently available in Payson. I think as far as scheduling, if there's a certain dedicated time, and I would fall in and support anything Judge Wright is saying here, but if there's a specific dedicated period of time where the courts know that the facility is available for the courts should be able to schedule that. I think it'll be a nightmare for whoever else would be tasked with scheduling that, because there would be multiple things going on all the time, and they would probably get very frustrated trying to keep up with it. But if we could do that, and then the other periods of time, someone else, maybe from the county manager's office, schedules it, I think that would work out fine. If, on the other hand, this really becomes a situation where we can only schedule it a few days a month, I think what you're going to find is, despite your good efforts, and it is a beautiful building, we're probably going to be saying, well, we really do need a courtroom up in Payson. This building, this room, the multipurpose room, it really is, it was designed with use of a court in mind. I understand it was designed for other uses too, but it probably, more than any other room in this county, is designed for the requirements of what a court would need. And I include the existing courtrooms that we have here in this building, which I think were great. I'm not complaining about them. I'm glad we have them, but I think this room is actually more suitable for a court than what we have here in Globe. As I think about it, I think if a community, for example, were to build a swimming pool and design it as a swimming pool, a community swimming pool, but then decide, well, maybe there might be some other uses that might be fitting for this. So we're only going to fill it up with water a few days a month. The other times we're going to drain it and we're going to use it, maybe we could put a skate park in it and do all sorts of other things. It could be done, but we'd lose the sense of using it for a swimming pool. I think the same thing applies here. The court, or this multipurpose room, has been designed more than any other room in the county for use as a courtroom. I think we need to be able to do it. I'll say one more thing and then I'll sit down. I had a trial, and as a prosecutor, I think I added up, I tried like 39 felony jury trials over my career. I think as a judge, I've had 33 or 34, so I'm familiar with trials. I had a trial as a judge a few years ago. It was a 4-week trial. It was a civil case, and it was a significant case. There was a request of the jury at the end for like $16 million. That's real money. And for a 4-week trial, I began calculating, okay, what are they probably paying everyone to be here? And it was hundreds of thousands of dollars to set up the 4-week trial. And actually, the facts of that case took place in northern Gila County. We had to hold the trial here in Globe because we didn't have facilities to do it up there. But if we had something and we're limited to a few days a month, we're not going to be able to try that case in northern Gila County. We're going to have to try it here in southern Gila County. So again, thank you for, the building is great. You did a great job. And it's been talked about by previous board members for years and years and years. You actually went out and made it happen. I just would ask that you allow us to have some dedicated time where we can actually schedule it without having to go through anyone else on those dedicated days, and allow us to offer it if it's not being used. But I suspect it's going to be used quite a bit during those times. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Anyone else from the courts that would care to comment on the building or the use of? No? You good? Okay. Sadie, would you care to comment on the recorder's use? And maybe the reasons that you're needing it and why you're needing it.
All right, thank you, Chairman. So we originally did not need the big room. We were going to use what was supposed to be the voting room, conference room. When we went out and talked to the architects and everybody, we said this had to hold at least 50 people. If you have been into that conference room, it does not hold 50 people. There is no possible way. They put a window for voting where you would look right at all the confidential information of a voter. So when I would go in to vote, you'd walk up to this window and her screen is sitting facing the voter. We can't share social security numbers, signatures, date of birth, all that information, and that is on that screen. So when we explained to James and Homero and everyone, it was not looked at or even really, they didn't really listen to our needs. There was lots of different things that did not happen with our office. I'm not complaining, we have a bigger space, it's nicer, but voting cannot happen in a conference room that small when you have to have touch screens, when you have to have drop boxes, when you have to have somebody there to make sure that the voter doesn't walk out with the ballot. So you're already taking up that space. So I have talked to John, and he has talked to the judges, and what we basically need is the month of July. It's about 33 days, and the month of October. I've been sitting back there brainstorming on how we can do this, but the majority of the ballots come from Payson. We have about 71% of people on what used to be the permanent early voting list is not called that, it's called the active early voting list now, but basically the same thing. And for some reason, up in Payson, the voters do not want to drop their ballot in a drop box. They feel that they need to walk into our office and see myself or one of my staff members, watch them drop it into the drop box in our office. So we see anywhere from 100 to 300 people or 100 to 300 people a day just dropping off ballots. That does not include the dual side of it, recording. We have title companies, we have document searches, we have so many different things. So where our window is, the front main window, you couldn't even do voting and recording. There's not enough room. They're already having to remodel it because they didn't think about how the desks would line up. We had to chop a desk in half just to have one person sit up front. So that is where the multi-purpose room came into play for voting. Is there any questions on why we would need that?
No, there isn't. I guess, well, I'll ask a question first this time. Have you scheduled July and October at this point?
Yes, I went to James and talked to him, and after talking to John and James, we did get it scheduled.
Okay, good. Supervisor Christensen, questions of the recorder's office?
Thank you, Mr.
And the use of their
Chairman.
building?
I was not here for the planning of the building and how it would be used, so I wasn't privy to any of those conversations or any of that. So I just have to approach it with the knowledge I'm receiving at the moment, the information. So Sadie, you know, there's a big lobby there. Are you saying that there's literally no other options other than using the multipurpose room for early voting?
Yes, that is what I'm saying. I'm still trying to brainstorm if we want to put a tent up like we did last year and have them walk in. They have a rule in the procedures manual that you can't have windows that people can take pictures through in a polling location. Well, our conference room has windows halfway around it. We talked to Homero and James, and they are going to black those windows out. But the lobby area, we would have to take up too much space to even be able to fit 50 people in there. And then when we tried to lay it out, they wouldn't be able to get to the assessor's office. They wouldn't be able to get to the door to go back to the supervisor's rooms. We would have to take up so much space. Then you cannot have just the public come and mingling with people that are trying to vote.
So before we had this building, we didn't have this problem, or did we?
Well, we always had a problem with space. That is why 2 years ago we set up that great big white tent.
Right.
And what we did was we marked it out. Part of it was because of COVID, but we would mark it out, and they would do a line, a zigzag all the way down, and we'd only allow 5 to 6 people in our office at a time to vote. Before that, this was when Mr. Hom was the assessor. We had to actually use his lobby for voting.
So I guess my question is that because we created a new building, now we've created a new problem.
Yes.
Where before you monitored the quantity of people coming in and voting, but now you can't do that.
Correct.
That's what you're saying? You can't do that?
Correct.
And that's because of some legislative rule?
Well, it's not just that, it's how it's set up. How you look at the office, we would have to line all the walls with the booths that they have to sit in.
Okay.
And you have to have ADA compliant. And you have to have traffic that's able to walk in and out. We have a line during early voting in Payson. There's a constant line. So if you come in that door and you're waiting to get to the window, there's no way people can go out. It's a cluster right there at the door.
I'm just saying, so I don't know you understanding what I'm trying to say. Before we had this building, you got it done,
Yes.
and now that we have the building, you can't do it the same way as you did before with less people coming into the building.
We can do it, but not in the space that was provided for us.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
It does, but I'm saying the lobby, but I understand the interaction and all of that. I just, it's funny how we're building this building, and it's a great thing, and it's becoming quite complicated to accommodate everyone, where before we had the building, everyone was accommodated.
Yes, and we are accommodating them, but we cannot do that in a room that holds 25 people when you have 50 people coming in and out, plus the machines, plus the ballot boxes, and plus you have to have someone there, an elected official or an officer there, not an officer like a sheriff's officer, but an election officer, that is making sure that these voters do not take the ballot out. First of all, I don't want a Class 6 felony for some voter walking out with their ballot. So we have to have one of our employees or an election officer making sure that these people don't leave with the ballot.
Okay.
And when we had it set up in the old building, it was an in and an out. And we were able to monitor that. And we had one employee that was more towards the end by the door, and we'd say, you need to make sure your ballot goes here. In here, my staff is completely closed off
Okay,
from the conference room.
okay, thank you.
Supervisor Klein?
Sadie, I don't think I have any questions for you, but you were able to work with the judges on this,
Yes.
and it'll work out?
I do
Thank
have a
you.
couple more questions, if you don't mind.
Please
Go
do.
for it.
Okay.
Please do.
About security, are we planning that? We had mentioned it to James and to Hamero. Have we thought about security? Just because elections get really tenuous, and some of my staff, we had to break up fights. We had one gentleman want to spit on me, and we received death threats. I just am wondering, are we having security up there?
Okay, yeah, we'll see if we can get a direction on that here down the road.
Okay.
Because whoever answers that question may have some input on the use of the building as well.
Okay. Will there be somebody there directing traffic? Because currently, my staff and the assessor's office is trying to guess where people go and interrupting a lot that's going on in our office. I didn't know if we were having someone sit up there and say, this is where you need to go, or how is that going to work?
Okay,
So,
perhaps we can, well, that's why we're having a work session, because there's things that need to get worked out. And change does create change, and I don't want to get rid of the building because we're having
No.
changes to make, to use it. But anyway, so yeah, so your questions are security and traffic control.
yes.
Okay. And okay, I'm glad that you have got our voting booked for the year. That's a comforting feeling.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone else have any comments on the use of the, do we have somebody up in Payson that has some use for the building or comments on use for the building?
I'm the only one in the room. There's no comments.
Okay, or recommendations even, huh?
No.
Okay. I guess then we're going to go maybe to staff. Staff have questions, comments. We have questions on security and traffic from the recorder's office. I guess we have security for the courts as well, because we have to have security for the courts, I would imagine. Judge, you want to?
Thank you, Chairman. We do anticipate working to have security, and I think right now is beyond just people. We currently have a grant application in for metal detector, so metal detector. So we're trying to help with that aspect of the building because it's not only the courts that have security issues. I think during election time, I think we're probably safer than the elections department. And usually, and the thing about security is it's not where you think is where, a criminal case, those are my least concern with security. I'm still on, it's the family law cases or those other cases That's the only case, the only one I've had where two people got in a fight was a probate case. In our lobby, one brother smacked his sister, and they were in their 40s or 50s, so they should have known better. But it's definitely something that is important, and that was one of the things as we were designing, as the building was being designed, is we said the more departments we can put behind security, the better. I mean, fortunately, here in this building, everyone is behind the security. Is our security perfect? No, but just the fact that everyone's behind it is a huge deterrent. Up in Payson, with everyone spread out, we didn't have that ability, and so the more people we brought in the assessor, Supervisor Christensen, you're behind that now, your assistants. You know, a lot of times they don't go after the electeds, or they think they can't get to us, so they'll take it out on our assistants or our staff, and they're at risk too, but now they're behind. Thank you.
She can hold her own.
Okay. Okay, then. I guess moving forward, we have wants and needs of the courts. We have some questions from the recorder's office. We don't seem to have anybody others concerned on the use of the building, whether it be staff. There was mentioned that there was an employee appreciation day. I don't know who scheduled that or why, but I mean, that's a use of the building. So I guess, James, chiming in, who else has reached out to do some scheduling for the building? And do you have some answers? Or do we need to get to staff to maybe look at some of the questions that have been asked today?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, as far as security, I was told by our facilities department that the magnetometer and all that, it will be there before we open. And that was promised to me. As far as directing staff, we definitely need a lot of signage put throughout the building to direct staff. They are right now all going to the recorder's office, assessor's office there in the building for directions, and we need to alleviate that. And that is forthcoming. That's little bugs that need to be worked out of a brand-new facility. So I think that was the two questions.
I believe that was the questions from the recorder's office is traffic control and security.
Okay.
And so that's being worked on for,
Facility has been directed
Okay.
to address that, and I believe they are, and have reported back to me that they are.
okay. I guess going forward, is there other things that we need to stir up to put in the gears of working towards? I guess, James, the scheduling of the courts at this point in time, or the building, is through your office, and so what leeway do the courts have at this time through your office?
Mr. Chairman, what happened prior to this board being on this board, I think is not relevant, because those discussions, as Judge Wright has said, have been going on for 35 years. They've had facilities that have had no changes in Payson for 35 years. This board saw the need, responded to the public, responded to the requests that have been made to provide a facility, and did a bond for $10 million. And I think that was it was an elegant solution to providing relief to services in northern Gila County, even though there's, as Supervisor Klein said, we're all one happy family in the county. When we were talking about like the mall of remodeling that was a cost of $2.5–3 million to remodel a rental space that we don't have for 5 years. That made absolutely no fiscal sense at all. Going back to a $60 billion facility, absolutely no sense at all. That's why those things were all put to the side. This is a very elegant solution to the needs of Gila County as a whole. Now, when we were discussing what this building would be used for, it was the jury trials. Jury trials, jury trials, jury trials. How often was the question asked? How often do they occur, and for what length of time? Generally, a jury trial is 3 days a week, 3 days in duration, 1 time a month. 12 jury trials, 3 days in duration that I was told, 36 days I said, we will honor that commitment that was requested and done that. So I was approached in my office with a list, a half a page long, of what the needs were and what the expectations were. One of those expectations was that that multipurpose room had to be used by the courts every single day. Every single day. I said, when that was posed to me, that that is not possible. It's not even any remotely to what we'd ever discussed. And so we're confusing things here of what we can do, what we will do, what we're willing to do. Everything that's been requested that is reasonable here today is granted. The courts supplied us with a list of dates for 6 months. What trials were going to be when and where and the time and all that. All of that has been accommodated with the exception of one open enrollment date where we can get our employees enrolled for health care, critically important, and the other to hold early voting. Other than that, all that the courts have requested for the next 6 months has been granted, has been put on the calendar. So I really don't understand where there's an issue of being able to grant these dates that have been requested. They are being granted. They are being given. So I don't comprehend it. We have a saying amongst the admin team that we're like amoebas. We will fill up whatever space we are given. And that's why there needs to be some control of this, because it is a building that was constructed with taxpayer dollars. It belongs to the people, and that's been commented by you as a Board of Supervisors. It belongs to the people, and they have just as much right to use it as any of us do. And to just carte blanche say, well, you can have it these days of the week, we may not be able to accommodate that. So I'm saying, well, let's open up the schedule, and we'll get you in. We're doing that. The second thing I suggested to Judge Wright was that he has been requesting for some time that the facilities, the court facilities, Superior Court facilities in the old court building there be remodeled. I offered to Judge Wright that I would elevate that as a priority to bring to the board to allocate resources to remodeling and do what work we can. So the whole issue of we have to do this, we have to do that, and we need this, the trial room back at the back of the sheriff's office. There's been an offer by myself to address that and to be able to figure it out. It's not now. We've got to work through that as the next project and bring to you as a Board of Supervisors of where you want to prioritize that. But I offered to bring it high up on the priority list. So I've offered, we're scheduling dates. I've offered to adjust, change, do what we need to their current space to enable them to do those things that have been mentioned today, have been discussed today as things that really make things work. They've been offered. And I will hold to that I'm willing to and have tried to work with the courts, and I'm sure that we can.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question?
Please do.
James, on our jail and our sheriff's facilities up there, you know, there was a lot programmed with that building and whatnot at the time. It just, we run out of money, basically. So if you take like that courtroom that they're using behind the jails, was that planned or scheduled to be part of the Sally Port for the jail, or was there other things that the sheriff needed to use that for?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Klein, the Sally Port is up.
Okay.
And the parking lot, we were holding off the ribbon cutting, dedicating of the building until April 19th. But the Sallyport has been constructed, the parking lots, I believe, are paved at this point, so all of that's in place, and still that area in the back of the sheriff's office is available.
Okay, thanks.
That was the way it was intended all along.
Okay, okay. Sir, do you,
Mr. Chair, sorry.
don't apologize, just get up to the mic.
Hi. So your question was, is that back courtroom meant for something else? Yes. So our goal was always that the judge, although we've worked with him, his staff has been great to work with scheduling, by the way. But the goal and the plan was that they would vacate and that would become sheriff's office space. Because for anyone who's been in the sheriff's office, we're stacked on top of each other. Talk about a building that's been around for decades and has had zero to minor changes. So the courtroom with an addition does come back to the sheriff's office and become office space for criminal investigations and property and evidence.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, sir.
We knew we could get you up eventually.
Okay,
I concur with that.
okay. I don't think we're done with discussions yet. Anybody ready for a break? We've been here for 2 hours. We want to take about 10 minutes? Is that good? Judge, you got things to do? Check on your grand jury. Okay, let's just adjourn for about 10, 15 minutes and then come back and wrap this up. I think we've made a lot of headway, but I think we need to get a little better direction before we call it a day. Everybody, but we've got the majority back. Oh, you know what? We don't have our attorney. There she is. No, don't be sorry. You're fine. Missy, you can't hear? Okay, hold on. Basin, you back up and running?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay, good.
Podium check 1, 2.
Okay, we're good, we're back up. Okay, then I'm going to reconvene, call this meeting to order on Tuesday, March 29th at about 12:10. Okay, we've heard from a lot of people, we've heard a lot of comments. We do realize that at least for a year, we have the recorder scheduled and up for the year. We're working on security. We're working on traffic through facilities. Thank you very much. And after hearing from County Manager James Minlove is that at this point, from what has been talked about or done in the future is 12 trials a year. And I believe that there may be more than 12 trials a year wanted. And so as far as scheduling time, I would think that, just my opinion is from the courts, Judge, about, it may be, I'm not asking you to come up with it today, but about how many trials would you want to run a year? And if it takes a week, right now, that's 12 trials, that's 12 trials a year at 3 days, that's one week a month.
Well, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Again, the difficulty with the trials is the unpredictability.
Okay.
And so, but if we have 3 days per month to schedule trials, the attorneys all know that, and so everybody plays chicken. And that's part of what happened. During COVID, we did have less capacity. Pre-COVID, we had 2 courtrooms here in Globe. We could run them 4 days a week, so we had basically 8 trial days a week. When COVID hit, we could only use our larger courtroom. We also had to go down to 3 days a week, so we went from 8 to 3, and we had backlog. A lot of the trials are 3 days. Not all of them are 3 days. Again, I mentioned the one, I have one coming up they're telling me 9 days. And so one trial, 9 days, it's just so unpredictable. And again, we've tried to be, we want to be team players. I mean, as I'm sitting here thinking, okay, again, our 2 needs are for the second courtroom and for the jury trial ability. If there was the ability to say, okay, we'll take the first 3 Wednesday through Fridays of each month, we'll group our cases there. That does limit us to a 9-day trial before we start getting a week or 2 off. But we can, and then if we can have either the other Friday or the other Wednesday, so that we can have that extra courtroom. Those are the kind of, and then with a cutoff for elections, we're looking for solutions.
Yeah, and you're down to 10 months because July and October are going to be for the recorder.
Only in odd years, though. I think that's in even years. So
Yeah.
in even years, we're back up.
Right.
We've been, I can tell you that on accident, I know July is off limits right now for the building. I've scheduled a couple trials that went in July because I'm on the bench. I'm not used to the procedure. And our staff isn't worried about the scheduling, so they're just taking it down. And then I get back to my office and my staff says, you scheduled that in July, Judge? And I'm like, oh, that's right. Okay, we told Sadie. So some of those things happen because we're just trying to work that through. So again, we're looking for solutions. Well, Mr. Minlove mentioned a few things, and I don't want to get into this or that. I'll just clarify, we're not looking for every day. If the courtroom is open and we have a high-profile case on a Monday or a Tuesday, we're going to be asking for that. The modification to to the current courtroom, we're all for that. It'll improve our security, and it also may take some pressure off. The current drawings potentially would allow for a eight-person jury to sit in the room. They still couldn't be picked in that room. So if we can say, if we get the courtroom modified, we may be able to pick on a Wednesday and then move back to our current facility remodeled on a Thursday or Friday. All things being equal, I'd rather be in the courtroom we're in now because that's close to all of our resources. Our clerk's office is there, Anita's people are right there. When we go over to the new building, we're probably all going to have carts or something. I don't know how we're going to get all our things over there. We're very used to using our facilities. So it isn't, so again, we're trying to come up with collaborative solutions.
Okay. Do you feel as if we've made some progress today? Or just wants and needs exposed today, but not necessarily progress in
I don't know. I mean,
Okay.
and I think the
Time will
question is,
tell.
yeah, and I think the question is, and this is a board question, I think there's three things the board can do. The board can say, we're going to set a policy, and then if you decide you're going to set a policy, you can set it however you want. The other thing the board can do is say, Mr. Manager, you need to continue working on this. And so if the board decides not to take a position, then I assume Mr. Menlove, I suspect he's thought through his position, and that's where we'll continue to move forward.
Well, I think the board's decided to get involved, or we wouldn't be here today.
Okay, well, and again, the board's involved, still does, you could defer and say, we've been involved, we've decided it, we think Mr. Menlove should continue on. Or the board could take a more active role, and that's up to, again, up to you.
Well, in my opinion as chairman right now, I would say as long as things work well, I don't care to get any more involved, but if things don't work well, I'm willing to get involved and make a decision because it doesn't seem that one can be reached in another direction. And I'm not sure how the other board members feel.
And I'm going to go ahead and have a seat unless you need.
Yeah, have a seat,
Okay.
have
I
a
would get
seat.
stuck
Yeah,
up
no,
here. I don't wanna sit down.
that's fine, that's okay.
Just a second, I think Supervisor Christensen was going to ask me.
Okay, were you going to ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Go
By
ahead.
your permission, can I?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can.
Thank you. Judge Wright, so Mr. Menlove said that the schedule that you've presented to him has been accommodated without needing to just guarantee Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Would you agree with that assessment?
When we first knew sometime in early March, we gave him I think we gave him the schedule we gave Sherry the schedule for April, May, and June, so for 3 months. And then at that, we gave him those dates, and other than the one date that I mentioned that was unavailable, and over the break, I had a call with Ms. Sibeli's, with our elected county attorney in reference to that. But other than that, the trial dates have been available. And then as we set trials in court, our staff afterwards has gotten with Sherry, Ms. Grice, and those have been accommodated. We've worked with, as long as the judges remember what we're supposed to do, we're not setting things when the recorder's office needs it. As far as the recurring dates for our second courtroom, we've requested those through April, May, and June. I don't believe we've reached out beyond that because we just haven't gotten that far out.
So the solution, okay, maybe that's not the right way to word that. So if you're privy digitally to the calendar, even though you're not manipulating it, and you can view what is coming up available so that with some confidence, you can say, okay, there's nothing scheduled right here. I'm going to ask Sherry for that. Is that an accommodation that would work? Because what we're really doing here is we're just discussing the nuances of how to handle this schedule.
I guess that is a possibility. Number one, I don't know if that's available now. I'm not aware if it is. It does add another person into our scheduling equation or another calendar into our scheduling equation. If we just knew that those 3 days, we just have priority, therefore, if if we have priority scheduling and someone calls and says, can we do this, we're going to accommodate it the best we can. We'll get it, if we can accommodate it, we'll get it on our schedule. And then we won't schedule over that. If we've given it to someone else, we're not going to say, oh, yes, we got it, but no, we want it back now. So I've struggled, and our court administrator has struggled with how big of an opportunity. There's really two things, the scheduling and the days. And I've struggled, and internally we've struggled with which of those is most important. Are they both important? And I've gone back and forth. I truly believe that both of them are important. Because if we have priority on days, then it makes sense for us to schedule them. And then that way, everybody knows if you need it on that day, you go to that spot for it. If you need it on the other day, you go the other way. That's my
Okay.
position.
Well, I do believe we need to seek maybe some additional adjustments in how we conduct the schedule. But I can also see with making adjustments where if your department had available the schedule of the big building, then you would with more confidence say we need these dates and lock those up.
And if the choice is the current system, us having priority on days or us having priority on days on scheduling, I want the priority on days with scheduling. At the same time, I'd rather have the priority even if Ms. Grice continues to schedule, because that is a better step.
Understand? Thank you.
Better for the courts.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Okay, Supervisor Klein, did that bring some questions to you?
Mr. Chairman, could I make a comment before Supervisor Klein? Directly related to Supervisor Christensen's question.
Go ahead.
Facilities has been out looking for a scheduling software program, not for just up north, but for the fairgrounds and everything that are facilities that are open to the public. Mr. Vela today says facilities are ready to go forward, but we had a demonstration a few weeks ago with the admin team and went through the software. I wanted to talk to them. We'll make a decision tomorrow if we're going to go forward with that software. So it's a thing, just like you're saying, Ms. Supervisor Christensen, that you can go look on there and see what days are available, put in a request, and then they can be scheduled. So there's a resource that will be available for scheduling and being able to look out far in advance of what dates are available. So just what you're asking for, I believe that we are going to provide very shortly.
Okay, did that help? Okay, Supervisor Klein.
So my personal opinion is we've kicked this around long enough. And I think between all of us here in this room, we're going to make it work. And hopefully we don't have to draft any policy on this building. And in about 6 months, the new will be worn off of it and things will filter back to normal. So that's kind of my outlook on it. Thank you, Judge.
Okay, I guess I won't ask you, Judge, because you sat down. That's okay. Okay, I understand that you want priority preference on certain days that would help you schedule a lot. I guess what I'm looking for is what days and how many, so that, I mean, do I have preference for the courts and the recorders? Yes, I do very much. And so, but how involved we get is okay, apparently, and you've been granted days that you've asked for, but it's like if you ask for those days and you're not given those days, then it creates an issue that just back up and pressures the other side. So I guess what I'd like to know is, like I said, how many trials, and that's hard for you to come up with, 3 days a week, because some are 4, some are 9-day trials. On preference going forward, what would you be looking at? As far as 2 weeks out of the month instead of 1 week out of the month, I'm just trying to help come to a deal here on what we can be supportive of, and maybe make a decision on amongst staff going forward, so it doesn't have to come before us again. But if it does, that's a question I'm going to ask, is, you know, if you want me to set a preference for the courts, what's the preference?
Okay.
And not every day of the
Right.
month.
You know, and we don't, Mr. Menlove indicated amoebas. I can appreciate that. I've been in municipal government for a long time, and if you're not careful, budgets, anything like they fill the space available. So I can appreciate his concern. When we've been under the impression, again, the Wednesday through Friday, okay? And as I indicated before, I've thought, how can we change that to accommodate folks, okay? The thing, and I made some notes as we were talking today, because again, I want to work collaboratively. We have enough people that are outside county government that we serve that we need to make sure we have a united front for. We need to push our energies that way, not against each other. If we were able to say, okay, three Wednesday through Fridays a month, whether those are the first three, the last three, whatever they are, as long as they're sequential. And then we can have one day of the other week. That's 10 days a month. That's half or less, depending on the holidays, depending on how many days are in the month. Will we use all those days? Probably not, but I can pretty much guarantee you, we'll schedule every one of those days because the scheduling is what makes things move. And at the end of the day, the most efficient jury trials are constitutionally provided. They're great. They remind us of our origin, but they're incredibly expensive and they're incredibly inefficient use of time in most cases. You have the clerk who now has one of her people tied up in for that one hearing for 3 days. She's paying jurors, whether they're driving or not, for those 3 days. You have someone from the county attorney's office, it's a criminal matter. Trust me, they're not just tied up for those 3 days, they're tied up for 2 or 3 or 4 days ahead of time, making sure they're prepped for those 2 or 3 days. If we have folks in custody, the jail is bringing them over. So if we can schedule those days, we can move forward. We have very, very few trials that are over 9 days. Occasionally we get them. But if we can do that and have that 3-week window, I think we can schedule most all of our trials on those days. Now, I haven't had a chance to speak with Mr. Menlove before of these. Beforehand, I don't know if that's something you think that we need to work, and that's our next step. If that is, we will work diligently with him. We've generally been able to work well with Mr. Menlove's office. And again, if we can get the remodeling done, then maybe at some point we say we can move that down to 2 weeks because we can have those second week of trial or the second, third day of trial in the other building. We're still going to need to make sure we have that availability of the second courtroom because I don't think the caseload changes. Unfortunately, either population or because folks in the north fight more or they're more litigious, we're just getting more cases from up there, and that's where the litigants are. Ms. Sabelli brought it up. That's where the victims are, unfortunately, and that's where the witnesses are. So.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And I'm kind of like with Supervisor Klein, I think we've discussed this enough, and everybody has their kind of wants and needs up that cared to share their wants and needs because we haven't heard from anyone else. And so I would think as long as 10 days a month preference for the courts is kind of what's being asked, and if the dates asked of the scheduling so far have been granted, if that could just be stretched into 12 months instead of 3, that's, for something to be worked out in the future. And any remodeling, if we have funding to help the court systems, I'm sure that pretty much the board would be behind that as well. And so if there are no further comments or questions, any comments or questions in Payson yet, or are you still up there by yourself?
I'm sorry, sir, I didn't hear you.
I said, is there any comments or questions up out of Payson, or are you still up there by yourself?
I'm still here by myself, sir.
Okay, with no questions or comments?
No, sir.
Okay, then.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Menlove.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I love Gila County. I'm making a choice to be here, and I want to see Gila County succeed. That includes you as elected members of the board. It includes all of our elected officials. I want to make sure all of us can succeed together. And that's my bottom line, is trying to work together so that we can all succeed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And if there's no further comments, then I will go on to call to the public, and I was just told that there's no public in Payson. I don't believe we have any public here that wants to comment. Do we have anybody on YouTube that wants to comment?
Not today, sir.
They dropped off after the break, huh?
At our highest, we had 19.
19 people, that's great to have 19 people attend. They're interested in what's going on, and they talk about it at the barber shop and beauty shop, so that's a good thing. Okay, then, I will go on to regular agenda item 4. At any time during this meeting pursuant to ARS 38-431.02K, members of the Board of Supervisors and the county manager may present a brief summary of current events. No action may be taken on information presented. Supervisor, James, go ahead.
Hey, you done at the end. That's okay. Just want to mention one thing, that all our discussion about the facility up north, we are having a ribbon cutting and a festivities that all are invited to, the public, all elected officials, everybody up in Payson. We will be holding the board meeting in Payson in those new chambers on April 19th. So I'm really looking forward to that and having a good time that we have that facility wide open and used for everybody.
Is it scheduled yet?
It is.
Is it on my schedule as of yet?
I'm not sure, but I'm going to hit Terry up right after this.
I'd hate to miss it. Okay, Supervisor Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, Cheryl and I will not be spending a lot of gas going to that meeting. That's going to be great. So we look really forward to that. It's going to be nice. So the building really is great. So briefly, last Tuesday, Mr. Chairman, you had your pre-fire season meeting, and last Thursday, we had ours in Payson that was very well attended, and Supervisor Klein was there as well. Probably 50 or so people there, very encouraging, had a lot of discussion, 3-hour meeting because of so much that occurred this last fire season, and so it was very encouraging. Out of that meeting, we had some discussion about roads in the unincorporated areas and access for the fire department vehicles. And so we're looking into that to see a remedy for that. We need to have our fire departments able to get to properties if they can. And the Payson Roundup was there. Michelle Nelson met with her yesterday. She's going to Woody and I are on the front page of the paper today because of that meeting. Was a photograph of the meeting. And she's going to do about a 12-part series involving fire-wise, forest health, some of the money that's coming in, some of the projects are there, how to evacuate, ready, set, go, all of those things that are there. And so I'm very willing to help her. Also out of that meeting, there was mention that there's a Arizona sales tax for fire district funding initiative that may be on the ballot coming up. And what that is a sales tax that would be 1/10 of 1%, meaning that if you spend $10, you have an additional 1 cent. And it'll go to our fire districts, and they want it so badly because they're limited on how much they can tax. They feel it would double their budgets just by doing this. And so it's something, I don't normally say I would recommend voting for taxation, but this one sounds like a good solution to a very big problem. On the 19th, I was at a grand opening for the Gila County Republican Club there in Payson. Very well attended as well, a lot of people. Also had a meeting on the trails and access in the Pine area. The trails people in Pine do a great job. And it's not just recreational. They create trails that are good for access for rescues, firefighting, and things like that. So I'll be attending a meeting in April where they're opening up some more of the, or improvements on the Highline Trail. And so this is another discussion point that I'll be meeting with Homero today. So that's all I have.
Supervisor Klein.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Start off Saturday, March 19th, we had a town hall meeting there in Young. Talked about kind of some of the regular stuff, roads, landfill, veterans retreat. Also, APS was there, that meeting. And I think I've spoke about it before, but they built a generating station there in Young that would help provide Young with electricity when it goes out, or it could even backfill as far as Pleasant Valley, Coles Ranch, Christopher Creek, all the way back, quite a long way. So that's built and in place, but unfortunately they're missing one little part that's floating around in the ocean somewhere. So we're hoping by June it'll find its way to land. On the 21st, I was part of an NRCD training deal with the state. We sat down as the NRCD board and went over a lot about what we're tasked to do. It was a very good training. And we have, looks like we're gonna have some good members on that. And then on the 22nd, me and Kathy were taken down into the shaft there at Resolution. We got to go down in that number 9 shaft, I guess, number 10. Anyway, that was fun. It's quite the deal. It's a long ways below ground. We were just under 7,000 feet, 2,000, and they're about 2,600 feet below sea level. It's pretty cool. It's a long elevator ride. It's about 15 minutes to the bottom and back out. And then one thing that I did not know, this was really cool, is when we came out, we stopped at a different level. That's about 1,100 feet underground. And they have a train system set up in there on tracks. But this train system goes all the way out to Superior, all the way through. I volunteered to run the train for them if they ever needed a hand, but they didn't take me up on it. But so it was really cool, and I believe that you guys are looking at getting scheduled here pretty quick too. So I think Kathy's involved with putting more scheduling together. South Route 88. We've been kind of following this. You know, it became washed out last year or 2 years ago, I guess, huh, Tim? Mucked out
Bush
right
fire.
there, yeah, at Fish Creek Heel, and the cost to actually repair it like it should be is a lot of money. But the state is, and another group, several groups, off-road groups, have been working together with SHPO to go in there with the bulldozer and open it up so it can be used. Not fixed properly, that will come in time, but for the meantime, be able to allow people to pass through it, which only makes sense. And so it looks like it's going to happen. One of the things that kind of helped push that just a little bit was on the Maricopa County side. There's a big billboard set up right there, and this is what it says, is open the damn road with the number to call our governor. And so apparently they've been getting like 40 emails a day about this road, is what we were told. And so it looks like it's going to happen, which for us on the Gila County side is a huge plus. That took away a lot of traffic on up to the marina and Roosevelt Lake and making the circle. So if that was to get opened up again, that would really help us as well. So they're working on that. Thursday, talk about this. We had on 24th, we had a special meeting here. It was in regards to the workforce, WIOA. We as a county, and I say we, the board, I recused myself of any voting on this, but the board elected to back out of the workforce program. So what's going to happen now is all 3 counties, us, Navajo, and Apache, will be getting back together, and I believe Mr. Minlove is working with the other 2 managers and see what they can do to work things out and maybe pull things back together. Not real sure where this is going to go or how it's going to end up, but hopefully we'll know soon. And the state will also be involved with this, which they are right now. And basically, so what that means is I'm on the workforce board, but the board is null and void right now. There is no board until these managers come up with a solution. and another agreement or whatever it takes to put us all back on the same page. And then on Friday, March 25th, I was in New Mexico in Gallup. I attended the Arizona-New Mexico Coalition of Counties. I was over there. It was a good meeting. I'm the chair on that board right now. Good things are coming out of it, but a lot of the same old fights as when I was on there prior to. You know, we're still fighting the wolves. We're still fighting other things as well. One thing that is coming up is on our allotments. There's a push to be able to retire these government allotments, and allotments, I mean permits for cattle. And it all goes hand in hand with the wolves as far as I'm concerned. You dump enough wolves on somebody, they can't live, they can't do their business, and they can't sell it. And so it allows, if this was to go through, it would allow a group to come in there and buy it and turn around and retire it, which is not where we need to be. And so we're pushing back on that really hard right now. And from Gallup, we ended up in White River. The Diamondbacks and Resolution went into White River right there and built them a brand new ballpark. Really nice. They did an outstanding job on it. And so we were there to see the opening of that ballpark. And I think I know it's a huge plus for White Mountain Apaches. And it's a good turnout. There were some other things going on, but it was a good turnout, and they have an outstanding park right there on the river. So we were there. And then one more thing, we had a Hayden council member, Enrique Lopez, passed away a couple of weeks ago, and his services are Saturday in Duncan. If anyone knew him, he was a good guy. I was able to attend quite a few city meetings with him, and he was a good guy. Always had things to offer. So with that, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Klein. Held a Southern Gila County preseason fire meeting, as you said, and the only thing what we really discussed is most of my district burnt. And now that there's grass all over it, it can burn again. And that Payson hasn't burnt in a long time, so be careful. I'm glad you guys are all over it. I'm glad you were well attended. I'm glad your fire response teams are current, because it hasn't burnt in a long time, and so you guys need to be very careful and watchful up there, that's for darn sure. Participated in a Roosevelt Drainage Project meeting. I'll be on Kiko radio on Thursday with Barry Johnson from the Globe Ranger District to discuss wildfire mitigation, to try to help people get more involved, to take more responsibility, to, look around, be safe as much as you can. Because they said that, they weren't out in front of the public as much as they kind of like to be, so I invited them. Well, I've got radio shows, let's get out in front of the public. If you want to let them know what's going on, well, come on, I invite you to let the public know what's going on and what you're doing, because that was a lot of the discussions through a lot of our fires, is that nobody knew what was going on, nobody was reporting to them, and so we encouraged more communication, or I encouraged more communication with the public, not only about fire, but when one is occurring, what are they doing? What is their strategies, so to speak? So anyway, that's about all I have, and I thank everybody for their input today, for the progress, hopefully, that we've made today on some of these issues. And so if no one has anything else, I'm going to adjourn today's meeting, and thank you all very much for your time today.